Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to hold on while our platform's letting everyone in. But in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat to give us a greeting. Let us know where you're tuning in from today. We would love to hear from you. We will note that you are automatically muted and your cameras are off, so don't be surprised by that. But like I said, feel free to use the chat. We will love to hear from you throughout today. I see those coming in. Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello. How fantastic. We have people from all over. For those of you that are just joining us, we're letting our platform let everyone in, and we will be started shortly. Hi. Oh my goodness. So many people from all over. Welcome, everyone. I always love seeing that. It's one of my favorite things about these webinars is seeing how we can bring people together from all over. So truly welcome. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started because we have quite a discussion to have today, and I don't want to waste any time. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, Black Joy Impacting the Mental Health of Black Communities. My name is Jackie Zimmerman. I'm the Public Education Associate at Mental Health America's National Office, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I have a few notes for you all before I introduce our speakers for today. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed out to all registrants within 1 week. We currently do not offer CEUs, but we do have a certificate of attendance that you can request. I'll post the link to that certificate in the chat here shortly, and that will also be included in your follow-up materials. Depending on our discussion today, we might have time for some Q&A with the audience at the end. So please feel free to post questions in the chat. We also encourage you to post comments, knowledge, resources, anything that you would like to share in the chat today as well. We always encourage you to use that respectfully. And I have a few other events to make you all aware of before we jump into today's event. This upcoming Tuesday, February 21st at 5 p.m. Central Time, we have a Facebook Live event, Community, Care, and Culture, where inner world meets the outer world. This discussion will be led by two of our MHA national staff, so we encourage you to join us there. And we also have a new blog out that you can read titled Black Dreams and Black Joy, Embracing Our Sacred Spaces, written by our very own Naya McCrae Brown, our Community Engagement Manager at Mental Health America. So that can be found on our MHA page and will also be included in those follow-up materials. Now, before we jump into our discussion, I would love to briefly introduce each of our panelists today because we have 5 incredibly special people joining us. So first, I would love to introduce Mina B. Mina is a writer, speaker, licensed mental health professional, and author of Owning Our Struggles, A Path to Healing and Finding Community in a Broken World. She is also the founder of Mina B Consulting, a mental health consulting practice that helps organizations develop psychological safety and become mental health inclusive. Her work has been featured in a variety of media outlets, including Red Table Talk, Peace of Mind with Taraji, BBC, Essence, and more. Welcome, Mina. With us today, hi, Mina. We also have Radiance Batson. Radiance is a trailblazing well-being consultant, professional life coach, yoga instructor, certified personal trainer, and Lululemon ambassador. As a champion of human development, she enlightens others about the mental, spiritual, and physical benefits of internal wellness and body movement. Radiance's mission includes creating channels to amplify underrepresented voices, service marginalized communities, and champion diversity, equity, and inclusion, health, and well-being topics. Welcome, Radiance. We're so happy to have you. We also today have Morgan Noble with us. Morgan is a rising sophomore marketing major at Howard University and is passionate about business, social justice, and reading. Recently, Morgan starred in Dove's national campaign, The Real Cost of Beauty, where she recalls a time when her hair and skin was ridiculed by her peers. As an intern at the Acoma Project, Morgan works with different partners to move the conversation surrounding mental health from a concept into action. She plans to pursue a career in sports marketing, public relations, or advertising. Welcome, Morgan. We also have Marlisa Nixon with us today. Marlisa is a person living in long-term recovery loudly. She is the Director of Employee Experience and DEI Lead Facilitator at Aspire Behavioral Health, a Georgia Recovers Billboard Ambassador, Recovery Champion, and Coach, as well as a Certified Addiction Recovery Empowerment Specialist and Certified Peer Specialist for Addictive Disease. She gets to use her voice to contribute to her lived experience and voice of recovery in and around her community while on the journey for healing and wholeness. Welcome, Marlisa. And last with us, we have Ayana Malone. Ayana is the Director of Training and Education for Onyx Therapy Group in Washington, D.C. Having started her career as a special education teacher focusing on emotional and behavioral disorders, she developed a deep passion for advocacy and seeking the best of her students rather than focusing on their deficits. Because of this, Ayana has spent a great deal of time exploring the efficacy of educational programs to serve and steward children who come to them as they are and value their social and cultural wealth. Her belief in mental health advocacy is centered on psychoeducation, teaching people to understand mental health processes, terminology, and skills. Welcome, Ayana. Wow, what an accomplished group. We are so thrilled to have each of you here with us. In honor to have this really important discussion surrounding Black Joy for Black History Month. So we will jump right into discussion and our first question. And to start us off, it's important to realize that often we're seeing media and other organizations using Black History Month as a reason to only highlight trauma. And we know that it's important to be aware of the struggles that Black communities have faced and still currently face on a daily basis. But it's also so important to acknowledge that trauma is not the only aspect of being Black in America. There's so many rich stories of successes, strengths, and joy that are often overlooked. And so that's what we really want to get to the root of and talk about today. So when you think about your family, community, and culture, what are some of the things that you want people to know?
I can start. So for me, especially related to my family, one thing that I love for people to know is that I come from a long line of college educated educators and work in school districts and everything. And I am about a sixth generation HBCU student. So everyone in my family has attended at least one HBCU at some point, got their degree, if not more. So that's something that I always love to tell people and really share about, because one of the things that people don't really like to think about is that there are a lot of Black families where a lot of people are educated, but people like to focus on the families where there's a first generation college student who's someone my age, 18 or younger, and these people are the pioneering in their family for getting an education. And for a lot of families, that's not the case. So I love to tell people that about my family.
I love that, Morgan. And as a current HBCU attendee, I went to 2 PWIs. I was very excited to be a part of your illustrious HBCU group. It took me a while, but I got there. I wanted to address one thing, and I think it connects really well to what Morgan was sharing with us, was this idea of cultural wealth and cultural capital. So much of the time we focus on the deficits within our communities, or, we're striving for this, we're striving for that. However, what if we actually flip the narrative to talk about our culture in terms of its wealth and its capital, our linguistic capital, our social capital, our financial capital. So, I really see Black History Month, especially in working in schools, as a time to highlight that for our young folks, right? I work with students from K to 8 mostly. They need to be able to see that what they bring to us on a daily basis is wealth, right? We talk about generational wealth and we're often talking about money, which is important. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think we should overlook the other types of capital that we have as Black people in the United States. So it kind of connects to what Morgan was saying about, why focus solely on those who have not been to college, rather than focusing on Black women being the group in America who is the most educated. Why don't we talk about that? So I just wanted to share that with you in response to the question.
I love those points that Morgan and Ayana made, especially as it pertains to wealth. And even not just money, money's important, we need that, but also the wealth of ourselves as far as taking care of our vessels, our bodies. We always have this word tied to us that we're resilient and we're strong, and that is true, but also investing within ourselves and building wealth within our bodies. So even as I talk about my community and my culture, when it comes to Black women, that we are out here thriving and living our best selves as far as internal and psychological as well. And I know with Nina, you talk about psychological safety. And when you feel safe within yourself, that is wealth times 3.
And I also, go ahead, Melissa.
Sorry. This is so rich, this conversation, because, in thinking about wealth, I do think about the things outside of the money and, the value of the mindset, and that there in our community, we get to heal today. And what healing looks like is being able to invest in our families and especially our children, and actually invest in our seniors, because with that mindset that goes across generations, and with that healing, we get to create this space for multi-generational healing through the things like what Radiance, talked about, investing in our bodies and, spirituality in our minds, and, highlighting, the wonderfulness around the generations with Morgan and your family and Ayana. I mean, the things that you are also doing in education. It is so much bigger. It's such a bigger picture, and it's about creating space to change our mindsets and unlearn and relearn some things, but to share it with the people that we encounter day to day.
And I think everything that everyone shared so far is beautiful. And I think connecting to some of the things that were said, I also think about redefining how we see success. Because I am that person in my family who was the first to graduate with an undergrad, from undergrad, and I was the first in my family to have a master's degree. Both of my parents are from the country of Panama. They were raised on an island called San Andres. They migrated here to America. My dad was a butcher, my mother was a maid. And they did jobs that the average American doesn't want to do. And I don't see my success as I broke generational dysfunction. I see my success as an extension of the hard work my parents put in, their efficacy, their advocacy for themselves, and their ability to say, I'm going to do the hard thing to continue to build my family, put food on their plates. So I don't even look at it from the perspective of, okay, I have a college degree and I'm the first one, but my parents, for them to migrate to a new country that doesn't want them and to put in the hard work and labor to give me the life that I was able to have, that is success to me. And I use that as a framework to continue to build my life. So I think too, in Black culture, often in our society, when we think of success and we know that there's a class divide, we think success is you have a higher paying job, you're living in a light neighborhood, a white neighborhood, you have all of these things that are honestly appeal to the white gaze. And for me, I'm proud of my father who was a butcher. I'm proud of my mom who was a maid, and that's success in my eyes. And I think that's the story I want people to know around what Black success can also look like.
Jackie, may I respond to something in the chat very quickly? I saw, in the chat, I'm looking and it's the comment about it, society's focusing on Black men in prison rather than kind of the positive deviance. And I want to say, thank you, I think Myra Rosa, who wrote that in the chat, because when we're talking today about Black joy, one of the quickest ways that our Black joy is robbed is through what I call confirmation bias. We hear more about Black men in prison because in our society, it is just confirming the bias that's already there. They don't want to talk about necessarily the successes. They don't want to talk about the positives. They don't want to talk about, well, look at Black women and see what they're doing. No, we'd rather talk about something negative because it just confirms that bias. And so oftentimes we, as people who define ourselves as Black in America, will hear that and we start to believe it ourselves, right? And we start to internalize that message. But just remember, it's just confirmation bias, right? And so it's the bias people already have being confirmed and splashed across a headline, even though we may know that it's not true or it's not the full story. We're not being told the full story. So, connecting back to your question, what we're not hearing during Black History Month often is the whole story, the holistic story, stories like Mina's story, stories like Morgan's story, so just remember that. Don't let things like confirmation bias actually steal your joy. So, but thank you for that in the chat.
Thank you, Ayana, and thank you for those questions in the chat. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for your thoughtfulness on this last question. And so much of what you just talked about leads perfectly into our next question, which is that Black history and Black culture deserve to be celebrated. And it does deserve that light to be shown on it during this month, not just those negatives and that bias. But we would love to hear from you on what are some of the things in your life right now that are bringing you the most joy?
I can start again. So a few months ago, I think you said this when I was introduced, but I had the privilege of being a part of the Dove Real Cost of Beauty campaign, which focused on gender and body discrimination and appearance-based hate. And one of the things that I mentioned in that video was how I went to PWIs for my entire K through 12 experience. So Howard is kind of the first experience I have of being around it. A lot of people who look like me and kind of looking everywhere and seeing someone who looks like me. And one of the things that I mentioned was how for a long time, especially middle school and high school, I experienced people saying things about my hair, people saying things about my face or my body type or anything like that. And I talked about just how I was able to overcome that because I realized that what they were saying was only because of kind of what Marlisa was saying about this confirmation bias, about this is what they're saying. They're used to saying one thing, and me being someone who comes from a very different type of like Black family than what they're stereotypically used to, kind of put them off kilter. And I really just spoke about kind of overcoming that. And then since that campaign, I was able to start my own business where I have now begun motivational speaking and going around kind of helping other young girls, femmes, people of color who have similar experiences or going through similar things now. I've been able to speak about my experiences and kind of share how I was able to get through it, how I continue to work through things that may still be tough for me to think about, but I'm working through it every day, and I'm able to kind of build that and kind of grow myself in my journey and share that with others. And I was able to share my story with a bunch of educators at my old school district. And one of the things that really moved me was a bunch of the older Black women in the room started crying when I started telling my story. And it made me emotional myself because it made me think that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm able to share what I am. So that's what's bringing me joy right now. And then being able to do this and kind of continue this path of growing my business and my brand.
I love that, Morgan. Gosh, I started getting got goosies as you spoke, because that just really what brings joy to me today is the passion and purpose around living the skin I'm in today. And, I get to invest in the relationships with my grandchildren. I'm a GD of 6. And I have, 6 grandchildren with all the shades that you can think of. And they get to see me in long-term recovery. I am a Black woman in the South living in long-term recovery loudly. And I get to share my story of hope today. And I get to experience the things and the things with my grands that they get to see me on this side of recovery. They didn't experience the broken, unhealed Marlisa or Gigi. And with that, I gain freedom and I give permission to others as well. And there's no respect of persons in terms of age or background. It's just God's given me a second chance here. And even in this arena, I get to talk about, the journey that at one time I believed would be something that I would be ashamed of. So I get joy in that today, and it's loving this skin today and sharing my hope and experience.
I love those answers, and it just inspires me so much. One of the things that brings me joy today is really living in my authenticity, like on purpose, living with purpose and on purpose. There are a lot of times, and I love Mina, I love your story of your parents. I'm not the first to graduate, but I am the first to kind of thrive out. But even then, my parents and my family may not have been able to live on purpose. They were just kind of going through a robotic sense, like I have to do this, I have to grind it out, going to work, taking care of the kids and whatnot. So now I'm allowing myself to live in freedom and to take rest as needed. And so we have permission to rest. And so being able to rest, to meditate, to really understand where I came from and to expand off that helps me live in my authenticity on purpose. And I think me living in my authenticity and resting and not being in grind mode all the time gives other people permission to live in theirs. And I think that's what's beautiful about Black women. Seeing this panel is amazing. I'm honored to be here, but it's like we are also giving you as those in this panel or in this webinar permission to live out loud, to live authentically, and just, shine your light onto the world. So that brings me joy, is living out loud on purpose.
I think what brings me joy as a Black woman is being able to assert myself and not feel guilty anymore. I think the old me used people pleasing as a coping mechanism, and a lot of us do. When our nervous system gets dysregulated, we engage in fawning mode, which a lot of people don't realize that is a stress response, where we start to cope by pleasing other people, putting their emotions on a pedestal, being responsible for their feelings, and we engage in self-neglect as a response. But it's a survival mechanism. And it took a lot of years, and it took a lot of practice. It took a lot of discomfort for me to finally be able to live in a place where I can say no and be okay with you being upset. I can live in a state and say no and recognize you're disappointed, but I know that you have the power to work through your own disappointment. And the fact that I can be able to assert myself and understand when you're erecting boundaries, that is a lifelong journey. So the area where I feel confident today setting boundaries, tomorrow I might have a new experience and I'm like, oh shoot, I never experienced this before. This is a little hard, but we can do it. And I think for me, what deserves to be celebrated is I find so much in when it comes to Black families and Black women, and just when it comes to race, a lot of us struggle because we're so used to being condemned. We're so used to being scrutinized. We don't want to be that person in the workplace who's labeled an aggressive or angry Black woman. I don't want to be labeled an aggressive or angry Black man. And so we're so concerned about what's happening externally, we don't realize we're engaging in self-neglect in order to survive and thrive in life. And you can't thrive if you're also living in a state of chronic self-sacrifice and self-neglect. So for me, to finally get to a place where I'm like, listen, if you're committed to seeing me through the lens of a stereotype, that's your anti-racist work to do, not mine. I have a whole plethora of things that I have to worry about and deal with and put my mind toward to heal, that if you want to be racist today, that is your work to do. And to be confident in that and know that there might be some emotional repercussions, that's hard. But I know I'm walking away with my peace. I know I'm walking away with my sanity, because I'm gonna be wounded either way. So I'd rather be wounded by speaking up and letting you know what my truth is and what I'm willing to tolerate, versus allowing you permission to continue to treat me however it is you feel like you want to treat me, or treating me in a way from a lens where maybe you lack the education, you lack the skills, but guess what? I can't do your work for you. So I really say that because I want people on this call to really empower themselves to think about the ways that sometimes you do engage in people pleasing as a form of survival. Sometimes we have to just get up and say, today is hard, today is heavy, and so I have to please the people around me, but you do have permission to say no. You do have permission to assert yourself. You do have permission to have boundaries. And when you recognize that you cannot be held responsible for people's feelings, I think there brings a sense of freedom and a sense of joy to know that I did my best. I was clear, I was direct, and I was kind. I was kind to you, and I was also kind to me. And that's reciprocity. That is respect. And when I reframe my thinking to say boundaries aren't mean, boundaries are an act of community care. So when I say no, I'm doing you a favor. When I say no, I'm doing myself a favor. And that to me brings me so much joy, because it elevates your self-esteem, it elevates your self-confidence, and it just elevates to see the way you see yourself moving through this world. So that's something I want to offer people today, the ability to say no without judgment or guilt.
I love it. And I was nodding so hard to what Mina was saying. I forgot that I need to answer the question, because Mina, what you're saying touched me so deeply when I think about a phrase that I use often in my workplace, when I I am the person, who uplifts equity in the space, and people are always like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, I tell the truth. And you just told the truth right there, right? Black women are no longer responsible for providing emotional labor, educational labor. Again, if you don't know, go to the Googles, get a book, find it out, right? It is no longer our job to educate you or hold that emotional labor for you. You go figure out your anti-racist work on your own. So I really agree with you there, sis. But what is bringing me joy right now? I became a mom later in life, and I have a 6-year-old. And what I am experiencing joy from is looking through the lens of his eyes and realizing how joy is so accessible in the simple things in life. We often think that to be happy or to feel joyful, everything has to be perfect or everything has to be aligned. I have to be making a certain amount of money. I have to have, 10 letters, scrolled behind my name showing my education. I have to be a certain weight. My skin needs to look a certain way. Find joy in those small details of your life, and I promise you will be joyful every day. When you wake up in the morning and a song you love is on the radio, stop, experience that joy. When you take that first sip of coffee, you can see me, I'm sipping my coffee right now because I love my coffee. Stop, find joy in that little moment. I look at my son who literally finds joy in absolutely everything he does, right? And like everything is exciting. Everything is the best day ever, the best thing ever. This is the best spaghetti ever. And I'm like, it's a can of Chef Boyardee. But I'm like, you know what? There is something refreshing about finding joy in so many small places, because it can be hard to find joy on a larger forum when the world was not designed for our joy, right? It was literally, the society is not designed for Black people's joy. It is not. It's designed for our trauma, like you mentioned earlier, Jackie. So finding those little pockets of joy, even though you are not in your most self-actualized or, perfected state that you want to be in. Don't wait for it. Find it right now. Don't reschedule your joy. Experience it right now.
Thank you all for sharing. And all of those pieces that each of you shared are so valuable and so important to think about for our own mental health and for our well-being overall, which leads us into our next area of discussion is talking about resilience factors. We know that resilience can play a role in the mental health of Black individuals and all individuals, and having pride in your culture and feeling connected to community, leaning on family or friends for support can all be factors that support our mental health and give us that extra boost of confidence and well-being. But what other ways has your culture supported your mental health, or what have you found to be most beneficial for your mental health? I know you've already shared so many great things, but any other input is appreciated.
For me, my culture has helped me to reshape what my identity looks like. It's a big deal to love the skin I'm in today when, growing up in the 70s in Alabama, I've had to unlearn a lot of things and relearn and unbecome in order to become this amazing Black woman today that I am, and I get to believe that. I've recovered authentically, and believing, my culture has helped me to understand that I don't need my old self back. When I was going through on my recovery journey and understanding I got permission to take care of my mental health, and in that I wanted my old self at one point, and my culture helped me to understand, no, this is the new you. It sounds cliche. However, my old self, I no longer fit into that broken Marlisa. I don't fit into that outfit, right? I am now a new woman, and I get to be the best version of me based on, the things that my culture and community have helped me to, redefine and reshape. So I'm grateful for that, because that's this whole new outfit of gratitude today.
Marlisa, I love that you said unlearning to relearn. That was like one of the things that I had put in my notes, because going back to even living out loud and often in my authenticity is giving myself permission to do that. So that meant unlearning the behaviors that were put on me as I was growing up, of even 9 to 5, working a corporate job, or this, that, and the fourth. And being able to pave my own path with what I desire. So even as I think about this question, what supports my mental health, and my friends and family know I travel the world. So for me, one of the things of unlearning is that I most recently in 21 took FMLA due to burnout from my corporate job. In 8 of those weeks, I decided to go spend time really understanding and seeking global well-being back in the continent that I arrived from. So I spent 8 weeks over in Africa. I volunteered in Ghana, went to Zanzibar, spent time in Ethiopia, and ended up resigning my job in Ethiopia, because once I really saw my culture and really how they live and how their wealth is true wealth, and how it was so vastly different from everything that I had experienced here in this corporate setting, I really understood the richness that was inside me and being able to pave my own path. But that came through traveling, through opening up, I like to call it neuroplasticity, the different brain pathways, so that you can kind of learn and understand what's out there. And I know that a lot of my family don't have passports, so it's like we're still so confined to what we see here. But I think America is so small compared to the rest of the world. So I say, in order to really expand and show the richness of your culture and joy, travel. Please, please, please travel and experience the world.
One of the things that I'll say in terms of culture helping my mental health is growing up, I was called like the Black kids would say I was too white, and the white kids would say I was like wasn't Black enough because of the things that I liked and the sports that I played. So I played tennis for 10 years competitively. And oftentimes I was the only Black kid on the tennis team. I ended up being captain my senior year. So there were all these things that I was doing that didn't really conform to what other Black kids in my area kind of experienced. So a lot of my friends happened to be white just because of the things that I was interested in. And that's just who I happened to be friends with. And then after graduating, I grew up very close to Howard because my mom went to Howard too. And so did her godmother. So I've had experience on campus. I've been to homecoming. All of that really kind of helped me see other people who like the same things that I like. So all those years where I was being told that like, oh, I'm not Black enough because I like Lululemon, or I read too much, or all these things, being on campus and seeing other Black girls walking around in Lululemon leggings and having their books in their hands and kind of walking around with all these kind of mainstream things that aren't really associated with Black people, that really helped my mental health because it made me think about there's nothing wrong with the things that I like, my hobbies, what I enjoy doing in my pastime, any of it. It all makes me who I am. And then being around other people once I got on campus and seeing that they're also like me in the sense of the things that they like and the things they like to do, that was amazing because it was affirming to me, saying that other Black people liked some of the things that I liked because I wasn't used to that. And then being exposed to other types of Black people as well. So different body types, different skin tones, seeing other people with locks, all of that kind of helped me because it made me more confident in just the things that I liked. And it made me even more open to being like, yes, I will repost something that Lululemon posted, or I will repost about this author that posted something else, or I will talk about this music that not a lot of people like. So that's what really helped me after graduating and then being on campus and kind of experience all different types of Black people and just being in that vicinity of all different walks of life.
I really love this question because it makes me think of how when it comes to like mental health studies and data, Black people and people of color are often excluded from those assessments. And so therefore, when you're thinking about mental health related issues, it is often seen through a lens of whiteness. So signs and symptoms of depression, signs and symptoms of anxiety. As a Black person, the way I experience anxiety may not look the same as a white person. And then when it comes to behavioral practices that you can engage in to support your mental health, again, they're utilizing studies done on white participants. So therefore, there are particular ways in which supporting our mental health looks the same, and it excludes ancestral or cultural factors that can help us support our mental health. And I say that because for me as a first-gen American, I often think about how something as simple, and if y'all are Caribbean on this call, you might understand, but all I got to do sometimes is turn on some soca music, and a bad day turns into an absolutely wonderful day, okay? And so some Patrice Roberts, drink water and mind your business. That's all I need sometimes. And my spirit is uplifted. But studies are not going to encourage people of color to say, maybe you need to do the Black cookout. Right? Why does the Black community get together in the summertime to have a cookout? It's about togetherness. It's about community care. When it comes to our music and our culture, the things that we do, that is often excluded from these studies. And so I often really encourage people to think about how your culture plays a huge role in your mental health and development, because if we continue to read these wellness blogs and we continue to do these research and these studies, they're not thinking of us because we are not the participants that they're doing these assessments on. So for me, it could literally just be, we're going to have Sancocho night and we're all going to get together and we're going to have the family cookout in the summer. If that's not what I'm going to do when I get in my car, like I said, I'm going to listen to some soca, I'm going to listen to some calypso, and I'm going to be all right. And so I really encourage us to think about how we can tap into literally our culture and what's available to us, what's made for us by us. right? Salon said it best, right? And so I want you to be thinking of those practices, because that in a way is what does truly help support our mental health. And we're not going to see that out there in evidence-based research. We're not. We're not included in those statistics. We're not included in those studies. So we have to be the ones to say, when it comes to breaking into generational trauma, when it comes to supporting my mental health, I might have to look backwards to my ancestors and see what they passed down to me through my lineage, through my culture, because that plays a role in elevating me in my spirit.
I love that, Mina. And as a Caribbean woman, I can deeply relate to just wanting to hear some Michelle Montano, and it just makes my day better, right? I just dance around. I also want to offer to folks out there, when I think about our culture and our resiliency, it usually comes in the form of humor. And what that has taught me is that multiple things can be true, right? We can, lament and be sad about, awful things that happen, but that doesn't mean you can't also laugh at all the Rihanna memes about the Super Bowl, right? I was recently coming across a post. It was about, the spy balloon that, keeps popping up and, shooting down the balloon. And somebody made a comment in the following talking about, and, you Black people are so worried about getting Beyonce tickets. You need to be ready for, when the people come for us. And I'm just like, so we're just supposed to sit in the house and be sad until it happens? No, I want to go to Beyonce, And we learn that, through our humor, like Black people are unmatched on Black Twitter, I'm sorry. But through that humor, doesn't mean you still don't care about those things that deeply impact our community. It doesn't mean we don't care that there is still injustice that happens daily. Doesn't mean we don't care that white supremacy is running rampant, for to this day. It doesn't mean we don't care, but it also means and I posted a slightly petty response. I was like, if the Chinese are coming to take me out, I'm going to go out dancing. And, and I was being a jerk, but at the same time, I really meant it, right? Because it's like, what are we supposed to do, right? We praise and worship, we laugh, like Mina said, we get together, we have Sanchoco, we have the cookout, we do that because it can be so difficult on the other side. And if we just choose to live in our trauma, we are going to be dragging ourselves right down to hell, right? We cannot choose to live in our trauma. We have to live in those moments of joy when they come. And if it comes in the form of a Beyonce ticket, trying to figure out if Rihanna was pregnant, if that comes in the form of we going to the cookout tonight, then let it come in those forms. So know that two things can be true. And just because you are feeling joyful and light and lifted doesn't mean you don't care about the things that are happening in this world. And I feel like our culture and our resiliency, to go back to your original question, is what has really taught me that over the years. I don't have to feel guilty about feeling joyful.
Thank you, Ayana. And thank you to all of our panelists. I know I told you not to worry about looking in the chat if you don't want to, but if you're not, you're getting so much support, and so many people in our audience today are just connecting with so much of what you've already shared. So thank you. For the next part of our discussion, I want to talk about some advice that you could give to someone who might be struggling with their mental health right now. It can be difficult in today's society for a multitude of reasons why people might be struggling, but for other Black individuals that seem to be having a hard time with their mental health, or maybe aren't finding community, connection, or support as easy, what advice would you give to them if they're listening right now?
One thing I grew up hearing almost daily, especially during high school, where I was trying to manage friendships, trying to find places where I felt like I fit in, and trying to find a sense of community in a pretty isolating environment, was that no is a complete sentence. Being the child of a psychologist, you kind of hear all these different kind of affirmations and things to help you throughout the days and the weeks and the hard times. And my mom always tells me and my brother that no is a complete sentence. And it didn't really make sense until after I graduated. But I struggling with mental health looks different for everyone. It may not be as blatant as it is in others. And it could be something as simple as you feel sad more often than not, or you just feel a little bit of stress going into something as simple as a test. And it's because a lot of things can compound on you at once. And I know I went through a lot of like anxiety and stress during high school, especially being on those kind of rigorous academic courses. So for people, especially like young people my age, I would just remind them that saying no to things that you know are either going to trigger you, put more stress on you, put more strain on what you're already doing, you can say no. And it may have consequences in the beginning, but just know that the after effects and the long-term consequences are going to be so much better because you didn't take on that one thing that was going to push you too far. And even if it seems minuscule in the moment, saying no is better than saying yes and overworking yourself and putting yourself in a position where you may not be able to get out of it in a few weeks or days or however long the time period.
Although I work for Onyx Therapy Group, shout out, I will say that I want to remind people that therapy is one path to healing, right? And so oftentimes when I come across those struggling with their mental health, or perhaps not even aware they're struggling with their mental health, our first instinct is like, you need therapy, go to therapy. It's not for everyone at all times. It's not. But there are so many different pathways to learning more about yourself. Articles, blogs, readings, videos, YouTube, TikTok, of all the, interesting places. If you're following the right people, if you're looking for a particular, like if you are concerned about your relationships and are you securely or insecurely attached, you can type that into YouTube and TikTok, and a wealth of people will come up that you can listen to, that you can read, etc. Because yes, going to therapy is ideal. We don't live in an ideal world. We don't live in a world where people have the resources, financial, where they have the access to be able to experience therapy. So don't let it limit you if you're not ready for therapy to sit one-on-one or in a group and talk to, a professional. Maybe you're not there yet, but read an article in a magazine. I want to give a shout out to our CEO, Dr. Linnell Plummer. You just Google her name. She has articles in Cosmo to Glamour, to Essence, Black Enterprise. There's so many different places where you can go and read something or access something. Listen to a podcast, a mental health podcast. Maybe you're not ready to be interactive with your mental health, but listening to someone else's journey might inspire you. I'm thinking of you, Marlisa, right? The idea that, just going to therapy is the only pathway is incorrect. So open your mind and expand the ways, to access the help that you need to get you to a place where maybe you're ready for therapy. But don't count out all of those other pathways. It's like we say to kids all the time, go to college, go to college. Look, I want every Black child in America to go to college, but I also know that's not the only path to success. This is not the only path to healing. Find other ways. They are out there. And if you need help finding those other ways, I think we're going to drop our contact in the chat and we can share some of those resources with you. But don't let, your access or your ability to handle therapy in the most traditional sense stop you from continuing or even just starting on your journey at all. So that's the advice that I would give.
Yay, I love that. I have a therapist, but I also have a coach. I have a mentor. I have a sponsor. I have all of the things because it takes a village to raise this child. And so even as I think about, I love it, please get a therapist, but also get a coach. Get someone that can literally motivate you, to hold you accountable, to boost you as far as like helping you get to your goals or the how-tos, or maybe even establishing goals, because again, it takes a village for you to thrive. Don't think that you have to do everything by yourself. And also don't think that one person can solve and handle all of your problems. Knowing that we as Black people have come from just, oh my goodness, unlearning and really uprooting all those things that have happened to us is not going to take just a team of one or whatnot. So don't be afraid to have all of the things like me, the entire team of advisors, I like to say, that help me be my best self.
I love that. To piggyback, off of all the things, it does take all the things. And, for connection is key. I mean, for me, for my mental wellness and what that looks like, it is a plethora of things. One is just asking questions and being, inquisitive around what's happening with me today, what's going on. And today I'm okay. I'm not all right, and that's okay. It's okay that I'm not good today. I'm my authentic self. I get to show up for myself today, and get free from some things through connection in order to be free for other people, to sit here with you ladies and share this experience. So connecting to others in whatever ways that means, like, Radiant says, like the committee in my head that does not need to be larger than the committee of people that I'm connected to or resources. So there are free apps, and there are free ways to have telehealth for mental health services to connect others. There are peer warm lines. I saw someone put in the chat peer support. I'm a certified peer specialist, and the state of Georgia has a plethora, a huge recovery movement around healing, recovery. And there are people just like me with lived experience that answer an 800 number that if you don't want to, share, if you want to be anonymous and just taking the first step, those things are available to have coaches and just do the hard thing in order to live. Because for me, I have two choices every day. Do I want to live or do I want to die? And that's not a physical death. It's a spiritual death. And because I have life today on this side of recovery, I never want to experience a spiritual death again. So reach out and connect.
I think everything everyone said honestly just hits the nail on the head. So I don't have much to contribute to this side because I think everything was so beautifully said. In the chat, however, I did just share therapyforblackgirls.com and inclusivetherapist.com because I do see a lot of people are asking where can they find culturally competent therapists or therapists who identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. So Therapy for Black Girls, though it says for Black girls, I do want to share that men can also utilize that directory to find a Black woman therapist. It's okay for a man to see a Black woman therapist. I want to plug that in. And then Inclusive Therapist is a directory of all BIPOC identifying therapists. So I just want to share those resources, but I think everything everyone said here is just amazing and kind of goes back to the power of community care. Therapy, as a therapist myself and as a licensed mental health professional, I do think there are going to be times where therapy can be absolutely beneficial to do that really deep work, that trauma healing work. But I also think it's just important to remember the power of co-regulation and the power of connection. A lot of you are doing a great job right now at practicing community care in the chat. So don't let it stop there. If you feel comfortable and want to share an email address or a website or an Instagram handle, plug it in so people can be connected to you. I also want to share too, when we think of the act of community care, remember connection is important because co-regulation helps us balance our nervous system. So the only thing I will add is to always just be mindful of who you surround yourself with, because the quality of your relationships will impact your mental health. So you do want to make sure that you are exposing yourself to supportive people, people who engage in reciprocity, people who can listen to your boundaries the same way you listen to theirs, right? And so just the power of what togetherness looks like, because I think sometimes we want connection and we don't know how to integrate into connection. So just make sure all of your self-healing work that you're doing, you're learning to bridge that to community, because self-care is the bridge to community care. I can do all this healing work on myself and still be a bad friend. I can do all this healing work on myself and still be a bad partner, right? And so how am I engaging in co-regulation and collective healing so that I know how to empower myself and empower the people around me and use togetherness and community care as a resource for my own mental health and healing? And look at y'all in the chat, just sharing all these resources. This is what I mean with community care. So stay connected. So I think this is, thank you all for your participation here, because I think this is a beautiful act of what collective healing can look like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mina. Thanks for sharing those resources in the chat with everyone. And thank you all for sharing in there as well. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and while I don't want to dive into another deep question, I would love, and this is a surprise for our panelists, so I'm sorry to catch you off guard, but I would love for you all just to share one word or a sentence that you're taking away from our discussion today. Mine is gratitude for all of you, but please feel free to share. And then panelists, also, if you have links or things that you want to share with the group, please feel free to post those in the chat as well.
I think my word or my phrase would be making sure that you're staying present. Sometimes I have a hard time thinking ahead and kind of getting anxious about things that haven't even happened yet. And no one can predict the future. So for me, it's all about like staying present and making sure that I'm taking the day second by second, minute by minute, and not jumping too far ahead, but just making sure that I'm staying in the moment.
Thanks, Morgan.
I would love to share a little something that I was reminded of, around some of the backlash around Rihanna and the Super Bowl. Like, showing up as you is enough. It's enough. Like you may be 6 months pregnant, you may be tired today, your kid may have spilled coffee on your pants. Be awkward, be different, be goofy, be corny, be quiet, whatever you are in that moment is actually enough. We don't have to continue to perform. I think Mina said earlier, we don't have to continue to people please. Multiple people have said it. No is a complete sentence. Like, we have to learn, myself included, that we are enough, and we are enough in our own fullness. And so often we become I know you said a word, but I'm speaking many words, but we become locked into this idea of having to be so much to so many people and represent. You are absolutely enough. That's enough.
And on top of that, I'll go ahead and just say, on top of that, you are enough, that you're also worthy. So again, we're all here on this panel, and just like, what an honor and what a blessing that is in itself. But then everyone that's in this room deserves to be here. And so I think just remembering how worthy you are simply by just opening your eyes in the morning is just such a beautiful thing. So you are enough. Yes, and you're worthy.
I definitely, all of that, it works, and is worthy to be remembered. It's about creating memories that are worth remembering today. And this is a memorable experience and authenticity. We all got to show up for ourselves and so many other people. So that wasn't one word, but yeah.
And I'll just add to that, because yes, you are worthy. And I think that's so beautiful what everyone said. I also want to remind us that our culture is also worthy. Our culture is deserved to be celebrated. Our culture is enough. And I just want us to remember, not only are we worthy as people, our lineage and who we come from, the skin we're in is good enough.
Thank you all so much. You're giving me chills at the end of this together. Truly, truly thank you for all of your wonderful insights and just willingness to share this space today. It is so appreciated. I know that everyone was sharing their words in the chat, and I loved seeing that too. I know some of the contact information might have gotten missed in there, so we'll be sure to include all of the links and things in your follow-up materials. I know many people have been asking about a recording of this to share. We will have that recording up within 1 week and up to you all. So please feel free to share with your networks and your loved ones, because this truly was such a beautiful discussion that we had today. I would love for more people to learn and hear from it as well. So thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day, week, and month. And we will see you all soon. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
everyone.
Thank you. Be well, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.